Station, Craig, and it's happening right now on the couch. Please welcome our panel this morning. We have political analyst Janine Zaino. We also have the president of the Sergeants Benevolent Association, Sergeant Ed Mullins, and New York trial attorney Eric Subin. Thank you all for joining us. So my first question goes out to you, Ed. We saw the Garner video, and that was one thing that happened this summer. But do you still think there's a war against the NYPD, or are we seeing a tale of two police departments that's being captured on these videotapes?
I kind of believe there's a war against the NYPD. Things that are being captured on tape, we're seeing the initial impact to an incident that occurs, 10-second, 30-second impact, but what we're not seeing is the details to the story that lead up to it. We're taking away the premise that when the police go to work, they're actually the good guy. We're taking that away. We're not given that benefit of the doubt. That's not to say that when a cop does something that's totally wrong, that we should be sitting back and justifying it.
Let's talk about specifically what happened in Brooklyn, and that was the video that we showed up front of the police officer basically cold cocking that person who was standing, a 16-year-old. Yes, he was running away. Yes, he was under suspicion of doing something wrong. But now there's an investigation. They've been pulled off the street. Obviously, something is wrong in terms of how the community is perceiving the NYPD these days. And these videos, time and time again, are proving it. Or are we missing something here, Janine Zaino?
In that particular case, there's a lot of discussion that there was things that occurred beforehand, and you have to understand the context of what was occurring. But that said, these videos do shed a lot of light on what has been some underlying tension between various parts of the community and the NYPD that's important to pay attention to.
All right, Sergeant, you said you believe that sort of there is a war against the NYPD, but you must acknowledge that there are people in the community that feel like sort of they're on the other end of that war, and the police are coming after them.
No, but absolutely. I totally acknowledge that. And we've talked about this many times.
Yeah.
There is a communication and an education issue that's missing. In that tape,
the kid's stopping right here, but then...
Okay, but can anyone say what that kid just said? Can anyone say if
I see his hands up right now.
But we don't know what he said. There was a cop in the 9th Precinct killed with his hands up. When you say he's 16 years old...
I see his hands up now.
When you say he's 16 years old... I see him being taken down. Okay, well, but right now, what you're looking at on that video is two cops over him. He's down.
And
I don't see any more punches.
I see another swing coming up.
We didn't see that. Okay?
Yeah.
So what was said at that moment in time? To say he's 16 years old, let's go back into the late 70s, early 80s, when Willie Bossett, I think his name was 14 years old and was on a murder spree in the subway system. So what does that have
I understand. The bulk of NYPD police officers, they put their life on the line when they're going out there. I understand that. But when you have the top cop coming out earlier this week and saying that if other police officers don't fall in line with what is being done, I do feel that there is a divide happening in the NYPD.
Well, no one knows exactly what that statement meant.
But what does it mean to you? You're a police officer?
Well, I think what he's doing is setting a standard for rules. But we are governed by a book of rules that's 6 inches thick. And I think what he's saying is we're going to enforce these rules. And if that's exactly what he's saying, that if you're out of line, if you've committed crimes, you're going to be dealt with. We all agree with that.
Yeah.
You don't think you're going to find a police unions disagreeing with that?
Eric, I want to turn to you, but I one more very quick question for the sergeant before I turn to you here. Honestly, speak honestly, please. When you're members of your union, when officers are on the street and they see a video camera come out, how do they feel about that?
Oh, they're very taken back by it, and we get the atmosphere that we're now the bad guy.
Yeah.
That's what we get. When we looked at that video in Times Square of Spider-Man fighting with the police, tons of video on it.
Yeah.
But not one civilian in Times Square came to the help of that police officer. Not one. There's something wrong with a culture that sits back and lets videotape the cop fighting with a guy rather than help the cop apprehend the guy.
Okay, Eric. Okay, he says that officers are taken aback when they see cameras come out. Should they be? I mean, you've dealt with these cases. What do you think? Do you think video is actually helping people be safe from the police?
Or is it continuing the digital divide that's happening in our community that we're seeing time and time again?
Well, from my perspective, a legal perspective, it's a key piece of evidence. I mean, typically when you have one of these 1983 civil rights abuse cases based on police brutality, you've got a he said, she said, where the police officer is typically in court on the stand given the benefit of the doubt by a jury. So when you just got some regular guy who's the plaintiff claiming to be beaten by the police, but you've got, video footage of a guy walking down the street doing nothing, putting his arms up and then getting cold cocked blocked in the face, maybe because he said something to the officer, that's a key piece of evidence that a jury is going to probably weigh pretty heavily.
So would you say then that if an officer is involved in a situation, a camera comes out, that then escalates it?
No, I don't think it escalates it.
Well, you're trained on that, aren't you?
And they're allowed to come to take
Sure,
the photos.
that's the law.
I don't think it
legally
escalates it. I think what it's doing is it's tying the hands of police, because there's a culture that's saying we're the bad guy. And the public, if they're taping the cops and the cops are doing the job the way they're supposed to, so be it. And if they're out of line and captured doing something wrong, then they have a problem.
Can I ask you a question in the case of this this woman here, Sandra Amesquita? She was pregnant. And the video that's seen there is that, obviously there seems to be some sort of divide when it comes to her being able to, she speaks Spanish. Did the cops understand what she was saying? But you see a woman that's pregnant. And, I gotta imagine at some point, you got to be able to draw the line and say, all right, this woman is pregnant. People are saying that she's pregnant. I shouldn't push her. Even if, let's give her the benefit of it. Even if she was kind of coming in between it, interfering with the arrest. I got to imagine at some point you say, all right, there's a way to take somebody down. You're trained on taking somebody down without a push, a shove, a punch.
We're saying she's pregnant after the fact. We have inmates currently in jail who've committed murder who are pregnant.
Okay.
Okay? When an incident occurs, instantaneously occurs, cops aren't sitting there saying they're wearing Nike sneakers. They're not sitting there saying this woman's pregnant or has one eyebrow.
Oh, so
That's not what's happening.
So get me into
what's
the
happening is we're getting under control the situation so that our safety is protected.
So get me under the mindset of a police officer in that case right now. What do people need to know? Talk about scofflaw too, because I don't think a lot of people understand that you could be doing anything and a police officer can walk up to you under the suspicion of anything. Am I correct?
Not really. No.
Okay.
That's not correct. If you're walking down the street, I can't just determine that I'm suspicious of you because you're walking down the street. You have to build that up, and we just talked about this earlier under the stop and frisk laws, that you have to have suspicion that gets built up to the next level even before you can do a search.
Okay.
You have to do that. So, just because you see a male black walking down the street doesn't say I can stop him because he's a male black. Okay? If he's doing things that go along the way, you have a right of inquiry, you can build up to it, and only at a certain point can you check for weapons if you feel your safety is being jeopardized. So it's not just let's go out and just stop people.
What I'm curious about too also when it comes to an arrest, a lot of people are saying, and I got lots of tweets on this, people are interfering in the arrest. They're interfering with the NYPD.
And that's true. And what happens is this builds up. Look at what I just said. Times Square, not one person came to help that officer. Look at that video. No one's ever said that other than me right now, that no one came to help that officer.
There's so much to talk about this, really, and I know we're wrapping up on time, and we really want to talk about the political fallout with Bratton and everything. I wish we can continue this conversation. Can you stay? I don't want to say that, but my producers are probably going to have a heart attack, and they probably are having one right now. Anyway, thank you for participating in the discussion. There's so much out there that we need to talk about to continue the healing. Of course, if you want to see these videos, go to our website at pix11.com and also continue to
join the
tweet us.
conversation too. I mean, there's a broader conversation. To join the conversation, please.
All right, coming up, a woman thought she lost her dog.